Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hey everyone, B1B Flyer here. Today we're going to change it up a little bit. We're not going to paint, we're going to make some terrain. Specifically trees. So it's really easy to do. I have been doing this for a little bit to make my backgrounds and spice up my bases on a couple of models. It's pretty much the easiest thing you can do. If you've got a few household items and a hobby shop or a craft store near you, you can get the materials you need. So the primary thing you're going to want to get are these chenille stems and chenille. It's called bump chenille, so I guess it's because it's bumpy. This is like a dark green. There's also like an olive color. They didn't have the one that I liked when I was there, but I bought these anyway. They're not cheap. They're not expensive, 2 for $1 or whatever, and I'm sure you can order them online. This is what they look like when you take them out of the package. You've got, light green, dark green. These are the stems, obviously. So we'll set those aside for just a minute. Talk about some of the tools you need. Wire cutters are real useful. Tweezers of some sort. Saw blade with a hole in it. That's the important part. This is a hacksaw blade, so but anything metal with a hole in it would work. So maybe I don't even know, like if you have a piece of metal or even like a door hinge or something like that. As long as it's got a hole big enough to fit the stem through it, that's what we need, and I'll show you how to use that. A brush handle. It can be plastic, metal, can be small diameter, large diameter. That's really up to you. That's what we're going to wrap around to actually make some of the trees. Something to set or stand your trees while they're drying, because we're going to get them covered in glue and things like that. These are just sponges, but styrofoam would work. I didn't have any readily available, which is odd for me, but anyway, we're going to use those. And then in addition to that, I've got some white PVA glue in a cup. I've got some small scissors. Don't leave home without them. And then I've got a candle. It's lit, which is why it looks like it's shining. And I'll show you why we're going to use a candle. So what you can make out of these are really any kind of general tree. So we're going to focus on basically like pine trees, spruce, and deciduous trees, conifers or things like that. Anyway, the point is that the bumps make the variety. You can do it with the stems, and I'll show you how. But we'll start with the bump chenille first. I'm going to try not to drag these through the candle while I'm working with them. Set those aside. So to take and make a fir tree, what I've done is basically just cut it. This is the length of the bump here. And for deciduous trees, you're going to probably want to use about that much. But anyway, so what we're going to do is take it and cut it close to where the taper ends with the wire cutters. And then if for some reason maybe it's not as tapered as much as you'd like it to be, you can take the scissors and trim it up. I'm not going to on this one because it doesn't really need it. So now what we want to do is set where the base of the tree would be. So this is going to be the tree trunk here. So you're going to take this hole on the saw blade and figure out, that's what's going to determine, hey, how tall do I want my tree to be? You want a short tree, you want a tall tree? It's hard to get 2 out of 1 bump unless you're making them real short. Here, I'll even show you a scale here with a 6mm figure. Tree-wise, whatever you want to do. If you're putting them on a base for a mech or whatever, you might want them a little shorter. Regardless, find where you want that tree to be. I'm going to do right about there, and then you kind of want it to tuck up that way a little bit. It works best. So now I'm going to try not to burn myself and make this visible on camera as best I can. Obviously, don't touch the end under the candle. Hold it from the other side. And now I'm just going to hold it over the candle. You don't need it in the direct flame, but you can see the chenille is melting. Don't do this around your kids. It can get hot, it can melt. Do it somewhere that's safe. Don't endanger your home. But that's about it right there. Maybe a little more. But the metal saw blade is to keep the heat away from the chenille you don't want to get damaged. Don't handle this right now. It's hot. So set it aside. I'll show you another one. So now I'm going to show you how to make like a deciduous tree. So grab this bump. All right, and then I cut one end to look like the top of the tree like I did before. Obviously it's a little longer. That's just where they split. There's usually about 4 of these on a stem. And then this is going to be my tree trunk here. So I'm going to start there. Pick it halfway in between the bump. Bend it at about 90 degrees. And then line up with whatever you're going to wrap it around. Leave yourself room. Go a little tighter. And then you're just going to roll it around. Any random direction. I'm going to work my way down just to get the tree a little bit shorter. I don't want to make it super tall. And then you're going to try to want to close it off. If you can't get that tip where you want it to go, grab your tweezers. This wire bends real easily, and just take it and kind of tuck it in. Grab it and roll it under in on itself. All right, slide it off the brush and then position it however you want. You can stretch. It's coiled, so you can stretch. You can maneuver it and get it the way you want it to be. If you want it more rounded on the bottom, go up a little further and leave some of that taper there. If you want it to look a little bit more, different like this, then that's fine too. So I'm gonna go with this since I think it looks good. And then the same thing. I'm gonna protect the tree here. I'm gonna do the stump because I don't want a furry trunk. And you don't even have to burn it all off. And if you don't like how skinny it gets, you can go back and take glue, super glue, whatever, and then put or putty if you want to use an epoxy putty, and put something around that to make it more tree-like. But I'm just going to put black paint on it or brown paint on it and make it look like a tree trunk. Take my own advice there. Yeah, this is cooled off. All right, cool. So now we can get into making stuff with the glue. So you got this bad boy, but you're like, well, yeah, it doesn't really look like a tree. I mean, it's even loppy on one side or whatever. So now we're going to get messy. So just get it in the glue, get it started, and just rub that stuff in. This is straight PVA right out of the bottle. I haven't thinned it down. You want to get it into all the fuzz, the fur, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, all of the material that we'll go with that, and then shape it. So now, it's starting to look more kind of like a Christmas tree, but you can definitely taper it downward as the glue starts to dry to kind of give you more of a tree look. If you want it more, fuzzy, or I guess larger diameter, that's fine. And then you can use your tweezers to kind of, if you want to, change it up a little bit here. I'm not being super specific with anything. I'm just trying to make it look like a tree. Put a little more glue on the bottom here. So if it gets kind of clumped up, you can kind of, work a little bit of that with the tweezers or a toothpick or whatever you got. I just found the tweezers useful because I'm going to be bending wire anyway. You can do, damaged trees, you can put bends in them and stuff like that. So this is where the top, maybe if you didn't have it as tapered as you want, I would cut it now too. If you notice that you don't like the way it looks, this is the last time you'd want to cut it because it's going to be soft and easy to trim. And if you got a little bit of wire at the top, not a big deal. Just remember when you go to paint the trunk to get that little spot up there, and it won't show nearly as much. Or you can take these and you can roll them in flock if you don't want it to be like necessarily pine tree. You can do alien trees or somewhat not earth. So now you want to let this thing dry. There we go. It's going to dry. So while we're doing that, same technique, but now with those bumps that I had before, I cut right into the middle. Okay, so now I got 2 trees out of it. And these are going to be kind of like those, what are they, spruce trees, I believe? The ones that kind of grow upward. Cypress tree, that's what I'm thinking of. So same thing. You're going to want to get that glue on there. That might be a little too much. Let's let some of that drip off. But now, just get that bad boy covered. And I probably should have done the same thing on the trunk ahead of time, but you get the point with that. And now shape it upward. And what that's going to do is try to keep it thick. I got it a little bit damp when I just went to cool it off. Is you're going to have a tree that goes upward and vertical. And it's a little messed up here because I need to get thicker glue. I'll show you. I'll just do another one and show you here. Do this real quick. All right, so do that first. And then get it in the glue. And then work it in. And you might need to let the glue sit for a few minutes to get a little bit thicker, because it might still want to kind of poof out a little bit. And some of this stuff might come off on your hands while you're working the glue. No big deal, just, you know, it washes off with water. But you see, now I'm just kind of rolling and pinching it in my fingers to get it all saturated, and then I'm shaping the tree. And you're probably like, oh, that looks like hot garbage. It's not gonna look good. Well, promise you when we're done it will. Try to get the focus that you want to kind of get is the top, because if it kind of splays out too much at the top, see, because it keeps wanting to fight you a little bit and split, because it naturally wants to go outward. But if you, like I said, if you hold it or pinch it or whatever, give a little twist. But you can get them to stay, I promise. For the sake of the video here, I'm working a little faster and being a little impatient, but you kind of see what you're going for is that. Well, got quite a bit of glue on there. You can use super glue if you want to fast set it. Since it's wet, the water will immediately set the super glue. So if it's really giving you fits, or you could try different things with that. You can even do that to make, you know, branches look a little bit different the way you want them to, or a whole new kind of tree that, you know, isn't necessarily anything that someone's seen before. And then you can always, like I said, you can always trim stuff down too. So if it doesn't quite look the way you want it, wait for it to dry, and then, you know, do that. So we're gonna go with this because honestly, I wasn't really gonna leave it this way anyway. I was gonna roll it in some flock, so we're gonna do that anyway. And then, you know, do the same thing, stick it in a sponge or something to get it to be alone or allowed to dry. Starting to stick a little better now that the glue is starting to cure a little bit. So there's that. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to make like smaller, like orchard trees or smaller kind of deciduous trees. And this is where, if you don't have those bumps, you can just use the regular straight ones here. So it uses more material. That's a half a strip right there, and that's going to get you one of these. So I think maybe if you used a whole one, it's still not going to quite get as big as the ones that have the bumps in them. So if you want something bigger, go for the ones with the bumps. But to get these, we're going to grab that handle again. Pick how long you want your trunk to be. I usually, you know, go about a knuckle length there, I guess, or tip of my thumb. And then you're just going to bend it at 90 and then bring it back down around the brush handle and just start wrapping. You can go kind of wide because you're going to bring it back around on itself. And then it's up to you. You can kind of loosen it up or tighten it up. The same thing before with that tip that's going to sit there and look a little weird. Grab your tweezers, and if it's down at the bottom or wherever, where it ends up being, grab your tweezers and just kind of tuck it back in. Slide that off, and now I just try to pinch from the bottom, and I kind of pinch to make it into a tree shape. So this one's a little bit more kind of pointed, so maybe I don't want that, so I'm going to kind of push the top in a little bit and kind of work some of these, because again it was coiled, so you have some maneuverability to get things to kind of go where you want them to go. So now that's about like where that is, and then of course I would melt the bottom fuzz off there to make the tree trunk. So cool. So now you got these, right? You can see the cypress here mostly getting drier there, or but anyway, the point is, this is okay, but it really doesn't look like a tree. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna use glue, but this time, because it's a deciduous tree, you know, you expect it to have a little bit more clump and leaves and all that kind of structure to it, you know, instead of just looking like a ball of fur. So get yourself a plate or tray or something like that, something you don't mind putting flock on. I know it's white, it's gonna wash out. You know what? We'll just do it on the black. So I've got like a green flock. It's not mesquite lemon pepper, and then this is kind of like a fall type of flock if you want to do fall trees or whatever. What looks good and is pretty much the easiest one to do though is just regular, like fine, is this fine? Coarse turf. So you want something broke up a little, You know, you can even make this stuff on your own, but you want something like that, you know, and it's better if it actually isn't the same color as the green that you're using, but you can always wash this or, you know, throw something on there to change the shade. So do the big one first here. And again, we're just gonna get it in some glue. Dip that guy in there. Now we're not really concerned with kind of shaping it like we were. We're just concerned with getting glue so that our clump, which we're just gonna throw it in there on. And again, if you have a bigger, flatter surface, that's obviously more beneficial, but now you can just stick that stuff in there. You know, find areas where it didn't maybe quite stick and just pack it in. And the best way I found to do this is to, you know, you kind of shake it a little bit once you've got the foliage on there that you are happy with, but really you want to just let it dry, and then you can go back and kind of, you know, flick at it to get the stuff that really didn't quite stick off of it. And even on top of this, if later on you could take a spray and you could either use sealant if you were quick enough, or you could do spray white glue, and then you could even put that like these fall, like, or if you had like yellow or you know, some sort of blossom color that you wanted to have on there, you could throw that on top of that, and then you'd have a tree that was in bloom. So there's really lots of ways to do this, but it helps to have this clump foliage on here. So you can see that tree was pretty good size, but now, you know, it's much bigger. But once this stuff dries, you can kind of, you know, pick away at some of that stuff and then get yourself a little bit more. And you can use different cuts, different styles of flocking and colors and things like that until you get something that you like. And then you can do the exact same thing with these. You could just roll them in that, and then you get a different shape of a tree. Again, if you want to make something a little bit more exotic and alien worldish or whatever, you could use the reds. You can use the fine chopped type. This is more of like, I think it's like almost like a foam cut type stuff. It gets everywhere. I'm not going to do that on my desk here, but that's something else you can do for the pine trees, things like that. Once this is dry, you know, you can trim it up however you want, and then you can use inks to darken it. You can paint the tree trunk obviously to however you want it to be, and then if you want, you can dry brush this with white, or you could add your snow effects if you want to use those instead and have a snowy tree. It works really well. These will be pretty hard once they're dried. So that is how you can make trees for pretty cheap if you have a few other terrain and basing materials around. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what you see and you want to support us, there's a link in the comment section there to our PayPal account that goes directly towards the continuation and advancement of CSO, either for the website or for the conventions, as far as the actual miniatures and dioramas that we put on. We never use it for our own personal, you know, we don't go and buy minis for ourselves or anything like that with it. So, but we obviously appreciate your support regardless of whether or not you contribute to that. Please subscribe, follow us on Facebook and YouTube. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you here next time.
Shutdown sequence initiated.